Oh, can everyone see the PowerPoint that you had? Did all of you have a chance to actually look at the PowerPoint and look at what you could do to look for resources ahead of time? No. So I'll try and find a middle of the road. If you find that I'm spending too much time on something that you already researched quite a bit, speed me up. And if you think I'm going too fast, feel free to slow me down. We're a small group, so I want to meet whatever needs you want. So there's our survivor skills. So let's see, I should be on. All right, there we go. So I thought that it would be nice to just put out questions that we hear all the time whenever anyone's asking us. So what are the survival skills? So the first question I put out is, which survival skills do we teach and when? So I put down what our survival skills are and just a little comment on each one of them to shorten it down. We have different tasks, especially for Carol, who hasn't even gotten her student yet. So we know that we have two different tasks in emergencies, calling 911 and reading emergency signs. And healthcare is the one that I'm working with my student right now. And that came about because he said, I have to set up a doctor appointment for my mother, and my mother doesn't even speak English. Not a word of English. So I'm the one who's going to have to do it. And I'm a little bit worried about whether I would actually be able to explain to the doctor what she needs in the way of help. And so I said, oh, perfect. Let's go do the healthcare unit then. So we looked at vocabulary, how to make a doctor appointment, and the symptoms and reading medicine labels. I've worked with a student on communications. And again, it was a student who said on our very first meeting, I asked him, so why are you learning English? Why do you want to do this? And he said, because I have two kids in school, a third grader and a fifth grader. And I want to be able to help them with their homework, understand what they're doing, and also to be able to talk to the teacher. So I know what I need to do from the teacher. So that was an obvious one to work with. Employment and training, that's the one Donna's going to do soon, she said. Job application, interview, and a resume. And Frank said he just did the one on the banking and budgeting. And DMV services, I've actually done this with two different students now. I've helped them get their driver's license, and it was fun because they were so excited about getting their driver's license. One of them had taken the test in French. The DMV puts out a manual in Spanish, but not in French. And French was his second language. He was from Africa. And he thought, well, I know French well enough. I'll go take it in French. And he failed it. He told me a dozen times. So we sat down and we went through it. And since French is my second language, I was able to explain things in detail. But we actually, his English was good enough that we went through the DMV manual in English with me explaining things he didn't know in French. And he went in and took the test and passed it the first time in English. He chose to do it in English. So that was what he chose to do. So those are the life survival skills we teach. And then when do we teach them was the other one. I gave you the link here so that you could go see a good sized view of it. And I'm going to go ahead and go to that one right now. Let's see. I need to move my view of all of you away here for a bit so that I can, we can't get to it. I see what I need to do. Not that one. Not that one. I have to minimize all your faces for a minute so that I can actually get to what I need. I think that it's this one right here. Yes, there we go. All right, that's what I wanted. So this is what that screen is, and I'll show you later on where to find it, besides the PowerPoint here. This is our general theme that we use, that we teach 2 of them in a year, and we start out, our fiscal year starts out in July. So we determine this from starting from July, where we choose 2. I find that that's pretty loose. I usually choose 1 in July because I know that that can change by the springtime. I might not have the same student. Maybe he's moved, or maybe he's dropped out because he's got 2 jobs and can't stay in it anymore. And so I will focus on the one that's most important to him. And we'll start reviewing what we need to do for the survival skills. And here's the key: give written pre-assessment. And one of my questions that comes up later on is, what is the pre-assessment? And it is the exact same assessment that we use at the end. It's the same test. So what we do is we give them that test to begin with. And it sounds kind of strange to give them a test of something they don't know anything about yet. But the idea is the state wants to know, and it is also good teaching practices for us as a teacher to know what they already know, so that we're not wasting their time over teaching, and we're not assuming they know things and teaching past them. So it's good for us to give a pre-assessment, which is the exact same test. They take it. We let them know this doesn't matter. If you don't know it, that's okay. This tells me what you don't know, so I know how to teach it. So don't worry if you don't know any of this, that's fine. We're just going to go through it, see what you do know, so that I can focus on building on your strengths, what you do know, and from there we'll teach you all the vocabulary that you need to do the rest of it. So that way they don't feel bad about doing poorly and not passing the test. They know that it's not a test that they have to pass. It's just something that is going to guide me as their teacher as to what I should teach. And once I have given them that, then I want to go to the survival skills, and I want to look carefully at what my resources are so I can start planning my lessons for it. Then I will take them through, it was actually about July, I think, that my student took the pre-assessment on healthcare. And he just last Sunday, 3 days ago, he took the post-test for task 1 and 2 and passed it with flying colors. And next Sunday, we'll do the post-test for task 3 to finish it up. And then I'll not worry about it until springtime. In springtime, we'll sit down and we'll look at it and we'll say, okay, I've already done the post-assessment. I'm finishing that up. And then I'll look at springtime. We'll choose another one. I've done emergencies with him before. Now I've done the nature one, and he's talking about getting citizenship. So I might replace, citizenship is not one of our life survival skills. So I might pass on a life survival skill in the spring and instead help him on passing his citizenship test. Okay, let me go back to. There we go. Any questions before I go further on this?
Yes, I have a question, Dennis. You were just talking about you opted because he's going for citizenship to help him with his citizenship exam. That's not one of the survival skills, right?
Correct. It's not one. So instead of doing a survival skill in the springtime, I will probably help him study and learn how to get his citizenship, and then set him up so that he can actually go through the naturalization process.
That sounds like a very worthwhile endeavor. I, for one, know absolutely nothing about a citizenship test. So, I mean,
you're lucky. There's one in our group who is the specialist on it. Donna has already taken someone through it, and she is our person to go to whenever we have a question like that.
How come you both have the same last name?
We're married. We're in the same house right now. Donna is right next to me on her laptop, and she's got her sound turned off, and she's listening to my sound because otherwise we get feedback and we make too much noise.
Yeah.
When she did her talking, I had to put on my mute button.
Yeah, I might be interested in that. I believe my student is also coming up for a citizenship test. We haven't talked about it, but he's had a number of meetings with his abogado, which is Spanish for lawyer. And so I know that's in process, and if it's something that we can offer to help him with, I'm happy to do it. But again, I know nothing about it.
You guys, I've done that test. I've passed the test. It's not really a hard test. And on the government's website, they have flashcards, so you can just flash yourself. I think there's 100 questions that it could be, but then it's 10 that they ask you maximum. So really, you have to answer 6 questions right. That's it, out of 100 possible questions that you could be asked.
Okay, and those questions are on some government
The
website somewhere?
history and how
You
the
can get
government
online.
works and that kind of stuff.
But you don't know which 6 you're gonna get asked, so.
No, that's
Sure,
right. You have
You
to
have
learn
to
all
know
the
them all.
100, but they're not that hard. Like the ones with the dates are hard, when you have to remember what happened in what year, but otherwise not that hard.
Can somebody, Donna Nazarene, send me that website?
Yeah,
Just so I can,
I can do it. I forget what it's called, but it's the US Department of Naturalization,
Yeah,
whatever it is called.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I can.
that'd be helpful.
Okay, sure. I'll do that.
Thank you so much.
If either of you want extra resources on DMD, I actually bought the 150 questions that they have to prepare, and I went through them, and they have the answers with them. So I made one document without answers and one with the answers so that the student could work on it. And I put spaces in there so they could write. And I did the same thing with naturalization. So I have all of those questions as documents, and I will be happy to share. Just send me an email and I'll send it to you.
Very helpful. Thank you.
You
Sure.
can do that online thing just on your phone, though. If you're practicing,
Yeah.
or
Oh, yeah.
you've got the test coming up, you can just sit anywhere and do it on the phone. It's
Yeah.
like I said, I thought it was pretty easy,
Yeah.
but I'll send you the link. I'll find out what it's really called and send it to you.
Thank you so much.
So I'm curious, how have you, without any direction, most of you have already chosen one of the survival skills and you've already started working with your student. How did you choose it? How did you decide which one to work on?
Well, I haven't chosen, I haven't started it, but I think for me, I would choose the emergency because that seems like the most useful and basic kind of life skill. So that's the one that I would start with. But
Any other comments?
Yeah, that's the one that they suggest that we start with, that everybody just start with emergency situations. And then from there, I just talked to my student and said, which of these other 5 is most pertinent to you? What would be most helpful to you in your life? And she said, oh, it'd be really helpful if I could learn how to get a better job. So that's the one we went with.
We know students are more motivated if they're interested in what they're learning. And so that's why we want to go out of our way to choose one that is important to them, rather than just randomly picking one and saying, okay, let's do this now. Let them see what the choices are and say, what do you think would help you most right now and what your life experience is?
yeah, so that's a good point, because my student, I think she said she's already had 1 year with another tutor. So it's possible, and she's a low intermediate. It's possible that she's already been tested on that emergency one. So I'd have to find that out from her.
Right.
Yeah.
And we have that first part of our lesson plan that's just conversation and perfect opportunity to just ask them, what would be a good one for you to start working on.
Mm-hmm.
So resources that we have, and where do we find them? How did that work for you? I tried to take screenshots and guide you through so that all of you would be able to find it easily. Was that worthwhile? Did that work for you, finding the resources? Good.
I had an impression. I could be wrong. I looked at it and it looked like a lot of those resources, you needed to go to the literary office.
Now we do have resources at the literary office, but
Right.
we can do everything online. And so that was what I hope to do to guide us through it. So let's go to, so if you go to our website, you just type in Literacy Program of Santa Cruz and you'll get this page. And this is the left side of the page. And I put a big arrow here to say on the left side, we go to the place that says Resources for Teachers. We click on that and that brings us up to another page. And we have to scroll down a bit before we get down to this one that says Literacy Survival Skills. And we have other downloadable resources as well, but we'll focus on literacy survival skills. We click on that one and it opens it up so that we have all of these options. This very first option right here is the timeline that I showed you. That showed that in July, we choose 2 that we plan on working, that we give them the pre-assessment, that we look at resources and we start lesson planning. We lead them through the first one, and then we give the post-assessment, and then the spring we do the cycle over again. This next one right here, you can see I'm working through a cold also, so if I talk too much, it gets to my throat. This one gives us the life survival skills assessments, so we can print out any of the assessments that we can work. And this one, I see I forgot to turn my arrow red on this one. This one shows us the resources for emergency, healthcare, education, employment, financial resources, and DMV. So I'm thinking of leading us through this one. Let's see.
Hey, Dennis, those are all links.
Those are all linked.
Okay.
So everything I've shown you so far, if we click on any one of these, it'll take us to the link. So I'll do that right now, just so that you can see how that works. Scoot that down so I can get to it. Let's go to, there we go, got that one out of my way. So I'm going to go to a new window and I'm going to type in literacy program. And you can see it comes up. It's one that I've gone to several times, so it pops up right away. So there is the literacy program. Come down to that's not the one that I want.
The one at the bottom says literacy
There it is.
program.
That's the one I want right there.
Yeah.
So I'll click on that one. There we go. Okay, and so now you can see, here's the window that I showed you. I cut myself off because I felt funny putting my own picture in there. And right down here on the left side is resources for teachers. So I'll click on resources for teachers. And the next slide, I said you have to scroll down to get there. You can see I have to scroll down to get to the part here where it says online resources, literacy survival skills. So now I'll click on literacy survival skills. And now it opens it up to show me different options. So this first one, the procedures and timeline, is the one that I showed you, that long, narrow one that tells us the timeline that we use to teach them. And then the next set is the assessments. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And you can see that I've got all of the assessments. Here's Life Survival Skills 1, which is emergencies. And you can see it has a task 1 and a task 2. So the first one is the one where we have to show that we can actually call them. And I don't know if the writing is too small for you, but number 7 right here says, ask for someone who speaks his or her language. So for a beginner, they only need, here it says beginning low passes with an 8. They only need 8 points to pass if they're a beginning low. And that means that they need to be able to say, name the emergency. So first of all, they get a point just for showing that they can call 911. Make sure that they're faking it and they don't accidentally call 911 on their phone. And then they have to be able to say something like house on fire or car accident. So we teach them that vocabulary, which is useful for them, which is an important life skill. They have to be able to give their name. They can pick up a couple of points for their name. They have to give the location. And if they can give the location, they've got 2 points for saying the emergency well, 2 points for giving their name, 2 points for giving the location of the emergency, and 1 point for actually dialing 111. So they're up to 7 already. Their last question is ask someone who speaks their language, and they've got it made. They've got the points to be able to pass it. And they know what to do if they do have an emergency and they need to call 911. And then task 2 is recognizing all the different signs. You can see life survival skill 2. Here's the healthcare system that I'm just finishing up. Has several different tasks. 3 is our educational system. They have to be able to call the office to report an absence. They have to be able to meet with a teacher and role play that they can talk with the teacher and ask about their student. Then employment and training resources, the one Donna's going to do soon about filling out a resume and a job application. And you can see they have several different tasks. There's number 5 on the banking one. It has 1, 2, 3 different tasks. And the last one is on DMV, and I think it has 5 tasks. There's 4 on this first page and the 5th one on the backside. And the 5th one, they actually have to take the role of a teacher and tell someone else why it's important to drive safely. It's a good one. It's not one that's for a beginning student. They have to be at a higher level. So now I'm going to go back now that you've seen.
Hey, Dennis, that question.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. So if your student has a driver's license, why would you want to teach that particular life skill?
I wouldn't. It's no longer necessary. They know how to do that skill, so I wouldn't worry about it. Turned out that my last student, I sort of found out that he was driving without a driver's license. I said, ooh, that determines it right there. I know what our next life skill is going to be. We're going to get you a driver's license before you get stopped and get in trouble for driving without a driver's license.
So I have a question.
Yes.
So these assessments are just done like just orally by us, and we grade them.
Yes.
So there's no proof or anything. Well,
no.
there's no
We're
record.
teachers, we're professionals, we're helping out the community, and we have no reason to try and cheat. We want the student.
No, not cheat. But I mean, so what test results are we giving the state for?
Dennis, my understanding is that once the teacher completes the form gets handed in with the
Right.
student's name and with their score. So to Maria's point or question, that assessment that you do does get turned in and recorded.
Right. So let's say that I'm doing the emergency one with my student. I would fill out the student's name. I would put my name down and I would put the date. And up here, I would write pre-assessment on top of it and give it to them cold before we've studied any of the vocabulary for it. And then I would go through and I would say, okay, I'm going to be the person at the telephone. You have to call me now and tell me that you've seen an accident. And they're probably going to struggle with it. They don't know what to do. And I can say, well, I'll show them this thing. And I say, can you name the emergency? And they might have trouble and say something like, car go off road. And I say, okay. And our scoring says, give 1 point for dialing 111, give the other 8 2 points if the utterance is clear and complete, and 1 point if it's partially correct and complete. So if he says car go off road, I would probably give that a point. It's not
Okay.
a real good sentence. It doesn't tell me whether the car crashed. It doesn't tell me whether the people are in danger. So I don't know that much. So I might give 1 point for that. And then I would go to the next one and say, can you give me your name? And then they would probably just say their first name. And I say, you should say your whole name on the phone. And so then they'll say that, and I will only give 1 point because they only gave the first name. So I'm grading them as if they would know this ahead of time. And instead of giving one, two, I'd just give them 1 point. And then I'd say, can you tell me the location? And they might say highway. I said, what highway? Where? So
Okay.
the first time the score is probably going to be pretty low because they're not sure what to do. And then
And
as
this
I,
is and this is the same thing that you fill out afterwards when you do
exactly the same one, I will print up a second one. And after we've studied this and we've gone through the resources and we've role played, and now he knows what to do, now I will pull this out and I will put his name on it again, my name and the new
Yeah.
date. And I will put up your post assessment on the top of it. And then we'll go through it and I'll put the points down and put their score down. And I'll submit both of those to Gisela. I'll go to-
So today I attended another Zoom on being a proctor. And I was, so it's not for this test.
Correct. It's not for this test.
Okay, got
This
it.
is one that we.
And
do
that's
with
where
them
my
individually.
confusion is.
So there,
Hey, sorry, I think maybe was that the CASA test?
yes,
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
CASA's
Yeah, that's
test.
different.
Good
And
luck.
if we look at our funding, we get more funding from the state CASA's test. We probably get our biggest funding from donors. And we also do a couple different fundraisers. So we have several different sources, and Life Skills is just one of those ways that we bring in money.
Hey, Dennis, I apologize. I have to head to another meeting, unfortunately. Thank you for doing this, and everybody, good luck.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for
Okay.
joining us.
Okay,
I'll see you
bye-bye.
later, Frank.
Yeah, bye.
Okay, so now I think I understand. So the
Good.
test that the CASA's test is more all encompassing,
Yes,
And this
all
is-
encompassing.
specific to, okay, got
Right.
it. Now I
It's
think I
general
understand.
knowledge. It's reading comprehension mainly. They have to be able to read all of this and choose multiple choice. Whereas this is something that we specifically instruct them in. We look at what they know already, and then we teach them what they need to know, and then we test them at the end. And I don't test my student until I know that he can pass. If we practice it several times, and once we've had an excellent practice where I know that he really knows the vocabulary and he can do it, I'll say, you're ready. Next time we get together, we're going to do this, and we'll fill it out and we'll do it officially and turn it in.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
You're welcome. So now I'm going to go back to the page where, now, the first one I showed you was, this one is our timeline. This one is our assessments. And then we have a whole set of resources for all of them. Here's the one on emergency. Since that's the most common one, why don't I go ahead and open the one on emergency? So over time, we've worked on these many, many times, and we create resources. By saying we, I mean all the different tutors, people who've been around for a while. We write a lesson plan and we say, this is a good idea, let's add it in there. So a lot of these things are things that several of us have completed and added in here so that others will have access to it. So I remember that task 1 and task 2 are pointed out for us, calling 911 and then recognizing and understanding emergency signs. So those are the ones we need to teach. And I remember Claire and Kristen went through the books and looked for all of these. And in Oxford Picture Dictionary, we have these different pages according to the different edition that you might have. You probably all have the 3rd edition. I have the 2nd edition. And here are page numbers that will help us show different emergencies that we can pull out of the Oxford Picture Dictionary. In our side-by-side text, Level 1 has these pages where it addresses it. So we could always go back to that and practice it if we've already done it. If it's new for us, make sure that we include it at some point in our lesson plan. Level 2 has some more. Level 3, I don't see any pages. Either we didn't find them or they're not marked down yet. Level 4, then we've got the activity book. This is the workbook that the students work in. And there are some pages where they show up in level 2 and level 4. Here is the next one that someone has created that showed different emergencies that we can share with them. Not likely we're going to run to a tsunami.
That never does.
And I was teaching a student who was from Ukraine, whose mother was killed a couple months ago, and he escaped from Ukraine. So obviously I got rid of this gunshot one. I didn't want him to see that one. And since I have access to it and I can make it, I thought, no, I don't need to show him that. But car crash is an important one. So here's some vocabulary we can work with them on. What is not an emergency? We want to make sure that they understand that they don't call if it's not a serious problem. And so we can talk to them about it like a noisy neighbor is not an emergency. We won't worry about that. Vandalism, we'll call the police. That's not an emergency. The police will come out and make a report. So a lot of these resources are sort of lesson plan material for us to enrich in their vocabulary, to talk about it so that they learn more about what they can use. The new readers, we have hard copies of the new readers in the office, but we also have all of these online. They've been scanned in. And this one is Emergency Help Part 1. And it has a whole thing in English in the left column and a whole thing in Spanish in the right column. And so most of the time, more than 90% of the time, our student is a Spanish speaker. And so we're able to use this side by side. So we could cover it up if they're at an intermediate level and try the English alone. And then when they run into trouble, switch over to the Spanish side. So they say, ah, okay, now I get it. Now I know what that word means. Another one on Emergency Help Part 2. Here's some help on what to do in emergency. So this really guides us in making our lesson plan and teaching them what they need to know. We tell them be prepared to answer questions. So let's say that I'm the one taking the 911 call. I'm going to ask certain questions. I'm going to ask what their name is, what their address is, what the emergency is. So that makes it a lot easier for them. If they're a beginner, they've got me asking them the questions. I'm prompting them so they don't have to memorize all of this stuff. They just have to learn to recognize what is your name and to be able to say my name is, and then say their name. What is the emergency? Where are you? And I use all these questions in my role play as well. More emergency words that we can use. If they're at an intermediate level, then it might be helpful to add a lot of this vocabulary in for them. This is a good one. I always use this one with them. I have them pretend ahead of time. Okay, so what is your name? Let's make sure you know how to be ready if you have to make a 911 call. You can fill in your name. If you don't speak English very well, you want to say I speak Spanish. You want to be able to know how to say I speak Spanish and how to say my address is and your phone number and your email so they could have this with them. So if there was an emergency and they had to call this in, they could pull this out of their pocket and be ready to help immediately. On the back side, they can say there's a fire. They can say I need the police. They can say I need an ambulance because they have it written right here. So this might be a good guide for them to keep with them. This is way too small for you to see, I'm sure. Hopefully some of you had a chance to go in and look at these resources ahead of time. But this is a guidance for tutors. So this is a nice, helpful hints to us what we can do as tutors to make this work better. Dialing 911 practice, student directions, ideas for role playing, So I role played several of these with my students, and I always make it fun. I laugh with them and they enjoy doing it because it becomes kind of a fun thing. They're learning language and they don't feel like it's a chore. They feel like it's kind of fun. We can laugh about it. What to do in case of an earthquake. What to do if there's a fire. You can see we have a lot of resources. Here's a sample lesson plan. And this is one that I created when I was working with my student and we didn't have anything like this. So I put up all of these signs because task 2 is that they have to identify signs. And so I created this document with all these different signs, just going on Google Documents and picking out different ones and making this thing. And so there it is, available for everybody. Any questions? I'm going to go back one then and ask if there's any one that you have a specific question for that you would like me to open and talk about.
Could you talk about the banking one, the pre-assessment? How
Which
you
one?
would do that?
Which one?
The banking one.
The banking one, okay. Let's see, financial resources right there. Okay, so you can see here's our objective 5. Here are the 3 different tasks. The first one is how do you inquire at a bank? And if they don't already have an online one, you can make one of your classes to go to the bank together. Talk to them ahead of time about what kind of account they might want. Do they want a checking? Do they want a savings? What things do they need to know? So that you can go into the bank with them and you've given them the vocabulary so that they can practice it and ask for setting up an account. How to make a budget, task 2. How to find and compare information on banking institutions. Resources, again, pages on Oxford Picture Dictionary. Side-by-side tests that address it. Here is one for the tutor. Information to help you as the tutor. Task 2, making a budget. So different questions that you might ask them. Why is it important to budget your money? That was one we talked about that. We said that could be a little sticky. So let's see what the suggestions are. Why it is important to budget your money. How do you budget your income? Do you keep a written budget? How do you keep track of what you spend for food, your clothing, your gas? Are you budgeting savings for emergencies? Are you currently saving for a big item? So those are good questions without asking them to reveal what their salary is or what they need. It's just making them think about, yeah, maybe I should budget. Maybe I should think about how I work with my money. Next one, inquiring at a bank. So here we go, lesson suggestions on how to go to the bank, what to ask, what to do. Making a budget. Why you need a budget. Comparing, task 3, comparing different ones, and that's it. So we have 5 pages of resources on this one. And I welcome you if any of you say, oh, there's not enough in here. I want to extend it a little bit. And you create something that you think would be a good resource for everyone else. Please share it with me or Claire, and we'll add it onto our website so that others will have access to it. All right, let's see. Any other questions? Let me go back to our timeline. Okay, next one, difference between pre and post assessment. Everyone got that now? All right, now we get to your questions and challenges. So do you have any challenges that you would like to throw out so all of us can maybe help you problem solve?
I have a question.
Sure.
You know, you said you give them the pre-assessment and then later you do the post. If they don't pass it, you don't turn it into anybody, right? You just wait and do it over again when you get there, right?
Now, the first one, the pre-assessment, I don't turn it in at all. I wait until I have the post-assessment. I make sure I know they're going to pass the post-assessment before I actually do it with them. But if in the case they had a bad day and they had a brain block and they did poorly and they didn't pass it, then yes, I agree with you. I would not count that one. I would toss it out and say, well, it was a hard day for you today. So I can see there are two different things that you forgot about on our symptoms. You forgot about some of the vocabulary that we had, like a sore throat and a sore back. So let's go back and study those a little bit. And then next week, let's try it again. So yeah, I want to turn in one that shows that they passed.
Right. Okay.
Other questions? Donna?
I don't know if anybody else has faced this particular challenge, but one of my tutors that I was mentoring was really kind of anxious about giving his student the pre-test on the emergencies, saying he doesn't know any English. He's just gonna feel so fearful about doing this pre-test. And I said, no, just explain to him that this is a requirement from the state. We need to do it this way. It won't count for anything. Just relax, do the best you can. If you can't do anything, that's okay too. By the end, you're going to be able to do it really well. And it's the difference between the pre and the post that's going to get us some points and some money. So don't worry about, not being able to master the pre-test. You're not expected to master it.
Well, I mean, you don't even have to call it a test. You can just do a casual sort of a cursory thing of, let's pretend we're calling 911 or whatever.
Exactly.
Don't
Yeah, you
even
can
call
say-
it a test.
Let's see what you know. So I have an idea as your tutor, what I need to work on to prepare you for it. And the last slide, what are some ideas? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand there. Carol, you had a question?
No, you already answered my question. Thank you.
Daryl,
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I was just waving goodbye. I have to go, but thank you very much. It was very helpful. I'm
All
looking
right,
forward
good.
to trying it with when I get a new student.
good,
Okay.
good.
Bye.
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 How about any ideas, tips, strategies that anyone has experienced that you would like to share that might help all of us?
No tips.
Well, I see that it's 3 minutes past the hour that we've put in, and usually I like to make it within an hour. So thank you for being patient and sticking in an extra 3 minutes. And if there are no other questions, then I guess we'll wrap it up. And I wish all of you good luck in working with your student, and know that you've got support. You have a mentor teacher, and you also have Donna and me to turn to if you need for any special things on the survival skills.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
Thank
much.
you, Dennis. That
Thank
was
you.
great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Good. All right, bye.
Bye.
Bravo, well done.
Thank you.